The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Stetson. It is very seldom that mere ordinary people like John and myself secure ancestral halls for the summer. A colonial mansion, a hereditary estate, I would say, a haunted house, and reach the height of romantic felicity, but that would be asking for too much of fate. Still, I proudly declare that there is something queer about it. John laughs at me, of course, but one expects that in marriage. John is a physician, and, you see, he does not believe I am sick, and what can one do? My brother is also a physician and also of high standing, and he says the same thing. Personally, I disagree with his ideas. Personally, I believe that congenial work with excitement and change would do me good. But what is one to do? So I will let alone and talk about the house. The most beautiful place. It is quite alone, standing well from the back road, quite 3 miles from the village. It makes me think of English places that you read about, for there are hedges and walls and gates that lock, and lots of separate little houses for the gardeners and people. There's a delicious garden. I never saw such a garden. Large and shady, full of box-boarded paths, and lined with long grape-covered arbors with seats under them. I am afraid, but I don't care. There is something strange about this house. I can feel it. I even said to John one moonlight evening, but he said what I felt was a draught, and shut the window. I get so unreasonably angry with John sometimes. I'm sure I never used to be so sensitive. I think it's due to this nervous condition. But John says if I feel so I shall neglect proper self-control. So I take pains to control myself, before him, at least, and that makes me very tired. I don't like our room a bit. I wanted one downstairs that opened to the piazza and had roses all over the window and such pretty old-fashioned chintz hangings, but John would not hear of it. He said that there was only one window and not room for 2 beds, and no near room for him if he took another. He is very careful and loving and hardly lets me stir without special direction. I have a special prescription for each hour in the day. He takes all care from me, and so I feel basely ungrateful not to value it more. He said we come here solely on my account, that I was to have perfect rest and all air I could get. Your exercise depends on your strength, my dear, said he, and your food somewhat on your appetite, but air you can absorb all the time. So we took the nursery at the top of the house. It's a big, airy room, the whole floor nearly, with windows that look all ways and sunshine galore. It was nursery first, and then playground and gymnasium, I should judge, for the windows are bared for little children, and there are rings and things in the walls. The paint and paper look as if boys' school had used it. It is stripped off, the paper, in great patches all around the head of my bed, about as far as I can reach, and in great place on the other side of the room low down. I never saw worse paper in my life. The color is repellent, almost revolting, a smoldering, unclean yellow, strangely faded by slow-turning sunlight. It is a dull yet lurid orange in some places, a stickly slippered tint in others. No wonder the children hated it. I should hate it myself, if I had to live in this room long. There comes John, and I must put this away. He hates to have me write a word. We have been here 2 weeks, and I haven't felt like writing before since that first day. I am sitting by the window now, up in this atrocious nursery, and there is nothing to hinder my writing as much as I please, so save lack of strength. John is away all day, and even some nights where his cases are serious. I am glad my case is not serious, but these nervous troubles are dreadfully depressing. John does not know how much I really suffer. He knows there is no reason to suffer, and that satisfies him. I suppose John never was nervous in his life. He laughs at me so much about this wallpaper. At first he meant to repaper the room, but afterwards he said that I was letting it get the better of me, and that nothing was worse for a nervous patient than to give way to such fantasies. He said that after the wallpaper was changed, it would be heavy bedstead, and then barred windows, and then the gate at the head of the stairs, and so on. It is getting to be a great effort for me to think straight, just this nervous weakness, I suppose, and dear John gathered me up in his arms and just carried me upstairs and laid me on the bed and sat by me and read to me until I was tired my head. He said I was his darling and comforted me all he had, and that I must take care of myself for his sake and keep well. There are things in that paper that nobody knows but me, or ever will. Behind that outside pattern, the dim shapes get clearer every day. It is always the same shape, only very numerous, and it is like that woman stooping down and creeping about behind that pattern. I don't like it a bit. I wonder, I begin to think. I wish John would take me away from here. It is so hard to talk to John about my case because he is so wise and because he loves me so, but I tried it last night. It was moonlight. The moon shines in all around just as the sun does. I hate to see it sometimes. It creeps so slowly and always comes in by one window or another. John was asleep, and I hated to waken him, so I kept still and watched the moonlight on that undulating wallpaper till I felt creepy. The faint figure behind seemed to shake the pattern just as if she wanted to get out. I got up softly and went to feel it and see if the paper did move, and when I came back, John was awake. "What is it, little girl?" he said. "Don't go on walking like that, you'll get cold." I thought it was a good time to talk, so I told him I really was not gaining here and that I wished he would take me away. "Why, darling?" he said. "Our lease will be up in 3 weeks, and I can't see how to leave before. The repairs are not done at home, and I cannot possibly leave this town just now. Of course, if you were in any danger, I could and would, but you really are better, dear, whether you can see it or not. I'm a doctor, dear, and I know. You are gaining flesh and color, your appetite is better. I really feel much easier about you." "I don't weigh a bit more," said I, "nor as much, and my appetite may be better in the evening when you are here, but it is worse in the morning when you are away." "Bless her little heart," said he, with a big hug. "She shall be as sick as she pleases, but now let's improve the shining hours by going to sleep and talking about it in the morning." "And you won't go away?" I asked gloomily. So of course I said no more on that score, and we went to sleep before long. He thought I was asleep first, but I wasn't. I lay there for hours trying to decide whether that front pattern and the back pattern really did move together or separately. On a pattern like this, by daylight there is lack of sequence, a defiance of law that is constant irritant to a normal mind. The color is hideous enough and unreliable enough and infuriating enough, but pattern is torturing. The outside pattern is a florid arabesque reminding one of a fungus. If you can only imagine a toadstool in joints, an interminable string of toadstools, budding and sprouting in endless convulsions. Why is something like that? There is one marked peculiarity about this paper. There is one marked peculiarity about this paper, and that is that it changes as the light changes. And that is that it changes as the light changes. Through the east window, when the sun shoots that first long straight ray, I always watch that so quickly that I can never quite believe it. It changes so quickly that I can never quite believe it. That is why I watch it always. By moonlight, the moon shines in all night when there is a moon, and I wouldn't know it was the same paper. At night, in any kind of light, in twilight, candlelight, lamplight, and worst of all by moonlight, it becomes bars. The outside pattern, I mean, and the woman behind it as plain as can be. I didn't realize for a long time what the thing was that shone behind, that dim sub-pattern, but now I am quite sure that it is a woman. I lie down ever so much now. John says it is good for me, and to sleep all I can. Indeed, he started the habit by making me lie down for an hour after each meal. It is a very bad habit, I am convinced, for, you see, I don't sleep, and that cultivates deceit, for I don't tell them that I am awake. Oh, no. The fact is, I am getting a little afraid of John. He seems very queer sometimes, and even Jeannie has an inexplicable look. It strikes me occasionally just as a scientific hypothesis that perhaps it is the paper. I have watched John when he did not know I was looking and come into the room suddenly on the most innocent excuses, and I've caught him several times looking at the paper. And Jenny, too. I caught Jenny with her hand on it once. Life is very much more exciting now than it used to be. You see, I have something more to expect, to look forward to watch. I really do eat better and am more quiet than I was. John laughed for a little the other day, and I seemed to be flourishing in spite of my wallpaper. I turned it off with a laugh. I had no intention of telling him that it was because of the wallpaper. He would make fun of me. He might even want me to take me away. There are always new shots of fungus and new shades of yellow all over it. I cannot keep count of them, though I have tried conscientiously. It is the strangest yellow, that wallpaper. It makes me think of all the yellow things I ever saw. Not beautiful ones like buttercups, but old, foul, bad yellow things. But there is something else about that paper. The smell. I noticed it the moment we have had a long week of fog and rain, and whether the windows are open or not, the smell is here. It creeps all over the house. I find it hovering in the dining room, sulking in the parlor, hiding in the hall, lying in wait for me on the stairs. Even when I go to ride, if I turn my head suddenly and surprise it, there is that smell. Such a peculiar odor, too. I have spent hours in trying to analyze it and find out what it smelled like. It is not bad at first, and very gentle, but quite the subtlest, most enduring odor I have ever met. But now I am used to it. The only thing I can think of is the color of the paper, a yellow smell. There's a very funny mark on this wall, low down near the mopboard, a streak that runs round the room. It goes behind every piece of furniture except the bed, a long, straight, even smooch, as if it had been rubbed over and over. I wonder how it was done and who did it, and what they did it for. Round and round and round, round and round and round. It makes me dizzy. I really have discovered something at last. Sometimes I think there are a great many women behind, and sometimes only one, as she crawls around fast and her crawling shakes it all over. Then in the very bright spots she keeps it still, and in the very shady spots she kind of holds the bars and shakes them hard. And she is all the time trying to climb through, but nobody could climb through that pattern. It strangles so. I think that is why it has so many heads. They get through, and then the pattern strangles them off, and it turns upside down and makes their eyes white. As if those heads were covered or taken off, it would not be half so bad. I think that woman gets out in the daytime. And I'll tell you why, privately. I've seen her. I can see her out every one of my windows. It is the same woman I know, for she is always creeping, and most women do not creep by daylight. I see her on the long shaded lane, creeping up and down. I see her in those dark great arbors, creeping all around the garden. I see her on that long road under the trees, creeping along, and when a carriage comes, she hides under the blackberry vines. I don't blame her a bit. It must be very humiliating to be caught creeping by daylight. I always lock the door when I creep by daylight. I can't do it at night, for I know John would suspect something at once. And John is so queer now that I don't want to irritate him. I wish he would take another room. Besides, I don't want anybody to get that woman out at night but myself. There are only 2 more days to get this paper off, and I believe John is beginning to notice. And I heard him ask Jenny a lot of professional questions about me. She had a very good report to give. She said I slept a good deal in the daylight. John knows I don't sleep very well at night, for I am so quiet. He asked me all sorts of questions, too, and pretended to be very loving and kind, as if I couldn't see through him. Still, I don't wonder he acts so, sleeping under his paper for 3 months. Jenny wanted to sleep with me, the sly thing, but I told her I should undoubtedly rest better for a night all alone. But I am here, and no person touches this paper but me, not alive. But now she is gone, and the servants are gone, and the things are gone, and there is nothing left but that great bedstead nailed down, with the canvas mattress we found it on. We shall sleep downstairs tonight, and take the boat home tomorrow. I quite enjoy the room now it is bare again, but I must get to work. I have locked the door and thrown the key down into the front path. I don't want to go out, and I don't want to have anybody come in till John comes. I want to astonish him. I've got a rope up here that even Jenny did not find. If that woman does get out and tries to get away, I can tie her, but I forgot I could not reach far without anything to stand on. To jump out of the window would be an admirable exercise, but the bars are too strong to even try. Besides, I wouldn't do it. Of course not. I know well enough that a step like that is improper and might be misconstrued. I don't like to look out the windows even. There are so many of those creeping women, and they creep so fast. I wonder if they all come out of that wallpaper as I did. I've got out at last, said I, in spite of you and Jenny, and I've pulled off most of the paper so you can't put me back. Now why should that man have fainted? But he did, and right across my path by the wall so that I had to creep over him every time.